Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we have our next LeetCode problem, promise pool. So this is a really important problem, especially for front-end engineers, as I have seen big tech companies like Uber asking these sort of questions a lot in their machine coding round. These questions combine multiple small concepts and try to solve a real-world problem. In fact, with such problem, interviewers can judge your different skills like your ability to solve problem, your language grip, and your core concepts around JavaScript. We will walk through the descriptions, concept needed for this particular problem, two possible solutions, and a real-world use case for this particular problem. But before we go there, I would like to invite you to subscribe my YouTube channel. I will be posting a lot of front-end related stuff and also related to LeetCode, data structures, and system design as well. Now coming back to the question, we are given an array of asynchronous function and a pool limit n. We have to return an asynchronous function promise pool. It should return a promise that resolves when all the input functions resolves. Pool limit is defined as the maximum number of promises that can be pending at once. Promise pool should begin execution of as many functions as possible and continue executing new functions when old functions are resolved. Cool. In simple words, we will be given an array of asynchronous functions and a limit here. For example, in this particular, the n is 2. So we can only process two inputs, two functions at once. And once we are done with any of the execution, we can enqueue the next one and start executing it as well. But we cannot execute the next function until and unless one of them is done. You can also notice that they have mentioned that the order has to be followed, that you can just execute the right next function from the current one. The promise pool should execute function I, then function I plus 1, and then function I plus 2. So it has to go in order. We cannot go in any random order. So to help you understand more, I have created an animation here. So since the pool limit is 2 here, we will be pushing two elements in the array. When one of them is done, we will be pushing the next one into the array. It is a possibility that the next pushed element gets completed first. See here, when it is done, we will simply push the next element, and once everything is done here, all the functions are done, we have to return a resolved promise as mentioned in the question. I hope this is clear. I'll take few more minutes to help understand everyone few array concepts. So this is how you can declare an array with n items. Please note that this will create an array of empty items. So if you do something like map of something like this, you will notice the map will not work here because this is just an empty array. To make it work, we have to fill it with something. JavaScript provides a fill method on arrays, and you can pass any value here. So if you pass something like ASD, it will fill the array with ASD, but since we do not need, we just need an empty array, we will just use array fill, and yeah, this should give the proper array which we want. Going forward, we have two more array methods to discuss, shift and unshift operator. So we can use unshift operator to push anything in front of the array. Similarly, we have unshift operator to move something from the front and store it in a variable. This will modify the original array itself, so you will notice that the value will be 234 after the removal of the front element. Now coming back to the question, we can start with the problem statement. So let's start with the simple approach. I'm planning to use recursion here. According to the function, we have to use and return a promise. So let's do that. The logic is to start with n functions and limited functions, keep track of their progress. Once they are done, we can call the recursive function to repeat the process. We can use two variables to keep track of the number of input we are processing, and the second is to keep track of the current function index we are processing, right? So I'll start with declaring a recursive function and the two variable as I've mentioned. We will declare the base condition of this function, so which will be that the function index, if the function index is greater than the function length, that means we have processed all the functions and we are not processing any of the inputs right now. That is, our in progress counter is 0. We can simply resolve it. If both of them are not there, we will simply loop over the array whatever we have remaining. In this while loop, we will be having a condition of in progress count should be less than n. That is, we should have some space to process that. In this particular example, our n is 2, so that currently we should be processing less than 2 inputs. If it is true, we will check if the function index is less than function.length. That means we still have few more functions to process. If both of the conditions are met, we will simply increase the counter, that we are going to process one new functions just to keep track of the current counts. Now we will pull the function from the array with the current index and store it in a promise variable. After that, we will increment the function index as well. This is just to know that we have processed the current one and we do not process it again. After that, we will use this promise use this province to keep track of this completion. When it's got complete, it will be there in the callback inside the then function. We will just decrement the in progress count. That is, we are done with processing the current one and we have one more space to process the next input. When this is done, we will just simply call the recursive function again to process and see if there are more functions to be processed. I hope the solution is clear. Let's just jump to the second solution. In this particular solution, we will be using await method a lot. So we will try to see if there are some function which needs to be processed, and we will process them at once. We will try to wait for them to get completed, and once they are getting completed, we will use the same recursive approach which we have defined earlier to call the function. So let's start by declaring an array of n elements. N is the limit here. So in this particular case, we will be declaring an array of 2 elements. When it is done, we will fill it with undefined and loop over with the executor function. So here we will call this function as evaluate next. So this will be called on all the items of this particular new array. Let's start by declaring evaluate next. Inside the evaluate next, we will first write the base conditions, which is if the function length is 0, we will simply return, we will not do anything. But if something is there, we will pull it out from the front and store it in a function fn. Right? When this is done, we will await for the function to get complete, and once we have the response, we will call the evaluate next function again in a recursive manner. Now we will call all of these promises defined inside the n promise variable at once with the help of promise.all. Promise.all is a special JavaScript method which will take argument as an array of n asynchronous function and wait for them all to complete. Once all of them are complete, it will simply returns the value to the variable. So yeah, this is the approach. I hope it made sense to you. I'll just repeat this one because it's a bit trickier. So first we will create an array of n items as the limit and then call all of them at once. When this is getting called, it will take care of calling the evaluate function next whenever its execution is complete. On line number 37, you'll notice that we will be calling next evaluate next. So if one of these two is getting done, it will call the evaluate next again and again just till the end of the functions.length. So in the end, we will be having function.length equals to 0 since we are pulling it one by one from the front, right? And when that is done, we will simply return and the function will be in end. I hope this made sense. If it really helpful, just let me know, or if you have any doubts, just put them in the comment. I would also like to invite you again to subscribe to the channel. It will be filled with a lot of informational content in the future. Thank you.